What's good, everybody? Welcome to the video. Today I'm bringing you guys another Etheria restart video like I promised. And today we're going to be talking about the supply pack you can get from the growth boost event. Essentially, when you reach level 10 on your account, you can get this supply pack, and it allows you to choose from one of three animuses. I'm about to say animuses, which is really nice. It's really nice because these actually have some pretty good animuses in them. But there are some people that I know are going to have a bit of trouble. They're going to be like, oh, I don't know which animus to pick. And what I say to that is just pick whichever unit you think looks cool or you think you're going to have the most fun with. But if you're like, no, I want a unit that's going to be good, that's going to help me make progress, it's going to make my time in the game easier, then don't worry, your boy's here for you, using my knowledge from other games like Summoner's War. I'm going to be going through all of these units with you guys and telling you guys which units that I would personally pick, rating some of them from, out of 10, just the whole shebang, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go, again, to each unit, read their skills out. I've summarized their skills. I have it written down on notes. And, yeah, I mean, I'll tell you guys which unit to pick at the end of the video. I'm actually going to tell you guys which unit to pick. But let's get into it. So the first unit that we're going to be taking a look at is Kazio the Reverie. On her skill 1, she deals 2 hits, with each one having a 30% chance to sleep the enemy for 2 turns. I'm not a big fan of Slumber, or Sleep, or this game calls it Slumber, because it's like other crowd control effects, where it can prevent the enemy from taking their turns, but unlike other crowd control effects like Stun, whenever the enemy takes damage, takes damage, they'll wake up. The effect is over. So essentially, think about it like this. She could place the slumber effect on an enemy. Then your own ally can attack the enemy, and yeah, they'll take 25% increased damage, but they wake up. So you don't really crowd control them, because you didn't really do nothing, right? Her passive makes this a little bit better, but not enough to justify it, right? And her whole kit is reliant on this whole slumber effect. You'll see it on every single one of her skills. Her skill 2, though, is a passive, and essentially it's whenever she attacks an enemy who is sleeping, she pushes their turn meter back by 15% without removing the slumbering effect, which it's cool, I guess. She kind of negates the bad part about this crowd control effect, which is the whole removal whenever the enemy takes damage part. But this only applies to her, which, cool, I guess, but not the biggest deal. The biggest part about this is the turn meter pushback. So on her skill 1, you're looking at a maximum of 30%. Yeah, 30%. And on her skill 3, you're looking at a maximum of 45%. So you could get a lot of turn meter decrease at a pretty consistent enough rate. And heck, even on her skill 1, if you can land it on the first hit, then the second hit you could decrease the turn meter by 15%. So her passive really helps her. I think if she didn't have this passive, if she literally had any other passive, she would have. I would just straight up off the rip, I'd be like, hey, I'm not even going to bother reading the skill effects or the whatever. She's bad. Her passive really does save her here. Her skill 3 is essentially a 3-hit AoE that decreases the enemy's attack by 40% with a 65% chance. If the enemy already has an attack debuff, then that attack debuff changes to the slumber debuff with a 45% chance for 1 turn. A criticism I have: if you're going to make this a sleep unit, make the sleep last longer than 1 turn, at the very least, in my opinion. Like, I would like for that slumber to take, to last 1 more turn. And another thing that I think that they should do is, like, if you're going to make the enemy take additional damage by 25%, you should do additional by 25% per turn that is left on the sleep. So if the sleep is there for 1 turn, 25%. If the sleep is there for 2 turns, 50%. And I think it should go in that order, to just make the slumber effect a little bit better, because I just think it's stupid, right? But at the very least, you get an attack debuff for 2 turns. It's AoE 3-hit. So at its best, assuming that you could already have the enemies asleep, you're looking at 45% attack bar decrease, turn meter decrease, which is nice. And on her skill 1, you're talking about 30% maximum, assuming they already have sleep on them. But let's be honest, on average, that's not going to be the case. The enemies won't already have sleep on them, and more likely than anything, she's going to be your only source of slumber. So you're not going to get 30% chance here, or 30% turn meter decrease. You're more likely than anything getting 15% most of the time. The rest of the time, 0%. And on this one, going to be pretty much the same deal. You're getting anywhere from 15% to 30% on a good day, like on at best. You're never going to hit that 45% all the time, right? You're going to hit it some of the time. So when you think about it, in general, she's a crowd control unit that can push back turn meters a lot, but it just requires so many steps. But we'll get into summarizing her in a little bit. Let's move on to the next unit. Taking a look at Yang, on his skill 1, he deals 2 hits, and on each hit, if he lands a critical hit, he increases his turn meter by 15%. So you're talking about a total of 30% turn meter increase, which is going to be very helpful for a guy like him, because just to quickly just spurt out his kit real quick, he buffs his team and he pushes at the attack bar of everybody, or the turn meter of everybody, while preventing the enemy from taking their turns. You'll see it as we get into the kit. On his skill 2, it's pretty basic. Attack and crit rate buff on all allies for 2 turns every 3 turns. Before his skill ups, it's every 4 turns. And I think that is something that is important to talk about. When you're talking about buffing your team, I think it is important to notice how long the buffs last and how often you're getting those buffs. 2 turns every 3 turns is really, really nice. Obviously, it's going to be worth skilling this up first if you do decide to get him. I like it. His skill 3, it says Yang in auto. The way I wrote it down in my notes, I said Yang and his dog. But Yang and his dog attack 3 times each, with a total of 6 hits in total. When Yang lands a critical hit, the human, or the animus, lands a critical hit, he increases the ally's turn meter by 10%, 30% max, right? So you're getting a total of 30% if you can land all of them as critical hits. And then whenever his dog crits, he removes 1 buff from the enemy with a 45% chance. That is really, really nice. So you're talking about a unit that has a lot of turn manipulation, turn meter manipulation, buffs his team, strips, and crowd controls the enemy. It's just, he does so much. We'll get into him later, but let's move on to the next unit. Moving on to Turnot, her skill 1 is essentially a multi-hit, a 3-hit, with a 50% chance to apply an accuracy buff to her own self for 2 turns, which kind of looks lame, but it's actually really good for what she does, for what her kit is. Her skill 2 is essentially a 4-hit. Each hit has a 30% chance to decrease the enemy's turn meter by 25%, and each hit also has a 40% chance to strip the enemy from or strip 1 buff from the enemy. So this is a really crazy skill in my opinion, because you have a chance to decrease the enemy's turn meter by 100%, as well as removing up to 4 buffs from the enemy. And you don't, I would skill her up, to get the most out of it. But you don't need it when it comes to the cooldown of it. You're getting this every 3 turns. This is really, really nice. And then her skill 3 is pretty basic. It's a 2-turn attack and defense buff on all allies every 3 turns. What I will say about this is, while the cooldown is nice after skill ups, before skill ups, it's monstrous. So I would make sure to get her skilled up when I do get her, or if you do get her. But when she's fully skilled up, she's really nice. So let's move back to the event. So we've finally taken a look at all of those units. So I think it's time to just quickly summarize all these units one more time, in case we've all forgotten what they do, and rate them out of 10, and then I'll tell you guys who I would personally choose. In fact, I'll give you an order in which you choose them, in case you have some of them. But let's start with Kazio. Kazio is a support crowd control unit that can reduce the enemy's attack and place enemies under a sleep effect if the enemy already has an attack buff or debuff. She can also reduce all enemies' turn meter by 15% per attack, maximum 45%, if the enemies are already asleep. I gave her a rating of 5 out of 10. For one, she's not useful for you in the beginning of the game. There are better crowd control units even in the beginning of the game. Heck, they give you Kachi, which I think is a better crowd control unit than her. And for her to even get her turn meter decreasing, she has to go through so many steps. For one, she can get it through her slumbering effect on her first skill, but for her third skill, she has to place an attack debuff. And if she does place an attack debuff, then turn that into a slumber debuff, and then she's decreasing turn meter, right? It's like it takes a whole lot to get to her turn meter decrease, but it is useful when you have it on every single turn. But I personally think for what it is that you're getting out of her, even amongst other units within this box, you can find better crowd control units that are much more consistent and aren't too hard to activate, and they're much more versatile. Speaking of those units, Yang. Yang is a DPS with support capabilities. He relies on critical hits to push out turns for not only himself but for his allies, while crowd controlling the enemies by decreasing their turn meter on critical hits. He can also buff all allies. I gave him an 8 out of 10. In fact, I almost gave him a 9 out of 10, but I'll stick with an 8 out of 10. I mean, he is literally a better crowd control unit than Kazio, which that's Kazio's whole kit is the crowd control units. He is a better crowd control in my opinion. He pushes out tons of turns, can deal a lot of damage because you're going to build him on damage. I mean, fuck, you're building him on crit rate, dude. He is a much better unit. I think he's a unit that's going to be really good for the early game for a lot of people and really good later on down the line. I think he's very versatile. You'll use him for a very long time. Moving on to Turnot. Turnot is a crowd control debuffer support. She can buff all allies and decrease the turn meter of a single enemy, as well as remove beneficial effects off of them. I gave her a rating of 7 out of 10. She reminds me of Lauren from Summoner's War. Lauren is a very, very powerful free-to-play unit that, while she only can crowd control one unit at a time, she is very good at crowd controlling that one unit, and this can be very helpful with bosses and any of the PvE content. And this can also be used kind of in like PvP content, but mainly in PvE. Really good early game, very useful late game. So I look at Turnot like that. Very useful in the early game, still useful in the late game. But if I had to tell you who I would personally summon out of all these, I would summon Yang. I think Yang has the most versatility. He kind of does a little bit of both. Like, all units have crowd control, but I think he has the best crowd control. He has the best buffs. He has the best damage, and it's very, very easy to build him. So I would go Yang first. If you already have Yang, I'd go Turnot, and then last but not least, Kazio. But I think personally you should just pick whoever it is that you want. I've picked Yang. I'll even show you. It's not me just saying it. Where is he at? Where my boy at? Got Yang right here, and I'm gonna equip him and everything. I mean, he is a really good unit. I think he's gonna be very helpful. I would get my hands on him. But if you disagree or you agree or whatever it is, put it in the comments. I'd like to hear what your opinions are on this list of mine. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. And if you like and subscribe, if you like and subscribe, if you like the video, prove it. Like, subscribe. Bye.